You've been here before. You stumbled across a video or an article breaking down the exact daily routine of a Japanese student who scored in the top 0.1% of the national exam. Up at 5 a.m., light stretching. Breakfast, 2 solid hours of focused review before school even starts. Structured study blocks in the afternoon. Lights out by 10 p.m. You read the whole thing and something just clicked. That's it. That's the secret. So you printed it out and taped it right above your desk. Day 1, you nailed it. Day 2, you started slipping. Day 3, you were back to your old habits, and honestly feeling worse than before you even started. If any of that sounds familiar, here's what I want you to know. You didn't fail because you lack discipline. You failed because what you copied was only the surface. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why you should never just copy a Japanese student's routine, and what actually makes that system work. Because the real answer was never on that printed page. Let's start with the morning. If you've ever tried to copy a high-performing student's schedule, waking up at 5 or 6 a.m. to get a head start, you've probably noticed something annoying. You sit down, you open the book, and your brain is just not there. Your eyes move across the page. Nothing sticks. Here's the trap most people fall into. We treat early mornings like a loading dock. The earlier you start, the more you can cram in. But a brain that just woke up isn't ready to receive new information. Think of it like soil that hasn't been watered in weeks. You can throw seeds at it all day. They won't root. The wind just carries them off. So what are high-performing Japanese students actually doing in those early hours? They're not immediately cramming new material. The first thing they do is wake the body up. Get natural light. Move a little. Let the blood start flowing. That's not wasted time, that's irrigation. Morning sunlight triggers cortisol at exactly the right point in your circadian rhythm. The hormone that produces real alertness and focus, not the jittery fake kind you get from coffee. And research shows that even light physical movement can boost memory consolidation by nearly 20%. Just getting your blood moving, that's it. Here's the one thing I want you to take from this section. Tomorrow morning, before you open a single book or app, walk to the nearest window and stand there for 2 minutes. Just that. Your brain will already be in a different state than it was 5 minutes before. But here's the part that almost nobody mentions when they share these routines online. The morning isn't primarily for taking in new information. It's for output. Top students spend the early hours retrieving, pulling yesterday's material out of memory without looking at their notes. A blank piece of paper, eyes closed, just recalling. That sounds too simple to work. I know. But every time you actively retrieve something from memory, you're reactivating and reinforcing that neural pathway. Each retrieval makes the road wider, more permanent. Our real problem has never been that we don't study enough. It's that we never give the brain a real chance to actually store what we've already studied. You can't expect a harvest from ground you never watered. The afternoon is where most people fall apart. You see structured study blocks in the routine. You interpret that as, sit down for 4 hours straight and push through. So you pour a coffee, open your laptop, and try to grind. An hour in, your focus starts drifting. You eat lunch, blood sugar spikes, your eyelids get heavy. But the schedule doesn't say anything about a nap, so you keep going. Those next 2 hours, your eyes are on the page. Your brain has quietly left the building. And then you blame your willpower. But this has nothing to do with willpower. It's biology. Human focus doesn't run in a flat line. It moves in waves, peaks, and valleys. The mid-afternoon dip isn't a character flaw. It's your nervous system doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Forcing your brain to run at full speed through a natural valley is like flooring a car engine that's already overheating. You don't get more output. You just accelerate the damage. Here's what's actually happening inside those dense-looking study blocks that you can't see from the outside. Every 40 minutes or so, they stop. Intentionally. 10 minutes of rest. Not because they've hit a wall, but before they hit one. That feels counterintuitive to the point of being offensive. Why stop when you're still going strong? Because the brain doesn't stop working when you pause. It keeps processing in the background, organizing, connecting, filing. You've experienced this without realizing it. A problem you couldn't crack all morning. You step away, go for a walk, grab something to eat. And then the answer just surfaces. That wasn't luck. That was your brain finishing the job while you gave it space. There's another piece buried in these routines that almost never gets highlighted: spaced repetition. Top students don't review the same material 20 times in one day. They look at it once, then come back the next day, then 3 days later, then a week after that. Each time the gap gets slightly longer. Think of it like sharpening a blade. You don't sharpen it once for 6 hours straight. You sharpen it a little, regularly, over time. That's what keeps the edge. Distributed review across days beats concentrated cramming in a single session, not by a small margin, but by a significant one. Focus and memory were never meant to be forced. They're meant to be worked with. Now we get to the part most people get completely backwards: the night. The routine says in bed by 10 p.m. Most people read that and think, that's because they already studied enough during the day. I haven't, so I need to stay up later. I used to think exactly the same way. My sophomore year of college, I was behind in 2 courses at once. I decided the solution was simple: just put in more hours. I'd start in the morning and go until midnight. Every day, no exceptions. The first 2 nights felt productive. By day 3, I had a low-grade headache that wouldn't go away. I'd read a paragraph, and by the time I reached the end, I couldn't remember the beginning. Simple things I'd reviewed a dozen times, gone the next morning. My roommate told me to take a break. I said no. Stopping felt like losing time I couldn't afford. So I kept going, sitting there staring at pages, absorbing almost nothing. Then one night I just crashed, fell asleep at 9 p.m. without meaning to. The next morning I picked up the exact same material that had felt impossible the night before. And it made sense. Same content, same me, completely different brain. That was the moment I understood what 10 p.m. bedtime in those routines actually means. It's not about discipline or some rigid cultural rule. It's about this: sleep is the save button. During deep sleep, the hippocampus takes everything stored in short-term memory and transfers it to long-term storage. That's not a metaphor, that's the actual mechanism. When you pull an all-nighter or even just push past midnight regularly, you're not just tired the next day. You studied for hours and then didn't press save. Everything you worked for gets fragmented or lost entirely. Top students also do one small thing before bed, about 10 minutes. They close their eyes and mentally walk through the 3 most important things they learned that day. No notes, just recall. It's a signal to the brain these are priority. Process these tonight. And they put screens away at least 30 minutes before sleep, because blue light suppresses melatonin and tells your brain the sun is still up, pushing back your deep sleep window without you ever realizing it. You think scrolling before bed is relaxing. Your brain thinks it's 2 in the afternoon. There's a Japanese concept called ema, the meaningful pause, the intentional space between one thing and the next. Before sleep, you need that transition, a gradual wind down from the high stimulation of the day into something quiet. That quiet isn't wasted time. It's what lets you wake up tomorrow as a version of yourself who actually retained what you studied today. The thing destroying your learning isn't a lack of effort. It's the just one more episode you tell yourself at 11 p.m. So let's pull this together. You saw a top student's routine online, you copied it, it fell apart in 3 days. That's not your failure. That's what happens when you're working from an incomplete map. You got the behavior, but not the logic underneath it. In the morning, they're not immediately loading in new content. They're waking the body up first, and then using recall to reactivate yesterday's memory before anything new gets added. In the afternoon, they're not grinding through 4 hours on willpower. They're cutting the session into intentional blocks, stopping while they're still sharp, and using spaced repetition instead of mindless rereading. At night, they're not going to bed early because they're more disciplined than you. They're going to bed because they understand that deep sleep is the final step that makes everything else actually work. Skip it, and the whole day unravels. Top Japanese students aren't superhuman. Their brains aren't built differently. They just stopped fighting against the way the brain actually operates. Every time we say, "I have a terrible memory," or "I'm just not built for this," we're blaming the wrong thing. It's not the brain, it's the method. Most people think academic competition is about who can push the hardest. It's not. It's about who understands how to work with their biology instead of constantly fighting against it. Now, I'm not going to tell you to overhaul your entire routine tomorrow, because that's the oldest trap in the book. Flip everything at once. Feel great for 3 days, crash, and decide it doesn't work. There's a Japanese philosophy called Kaizen, continuous improvement through small, consistent changes. Not dramatic overhauls, just one thing done repeatedly until it becomes part of the rhythm. So tonight, just pick one. Either put your phone down 30 minutes earlier than usual and spend 10 minutes recalling the 3 most important things you learned today. No notes, just think. Or tomorrow morning, before you open anything, walk to the window. 2 minutes. Let the light in. Let the body wake up before the brain starts working. One thing. That's it. Because grinding harder won't make you smarter. But learning to work with your brain instead of against it, that compounds every single day. The future doesn't belong to whoever studies the longest. It belongs to whoever figures out how to actually use what they've got. If this hits something you recognized in yourself, like that screenshot you saved and forgot about, hit like. It genuinely helps. And if you know someone who's studying harder and harder while feeling like nothing is sticking, send this to them. Because sometimes the whole game changes the moment someone realizes it was never about the hours. See you in the next one.